Okay. We have, okay, it just turned 2:30. Should we wait or should we go ahead? Another minute or?
Maybe another minute. People are
Okay.
coming.
This day has gone by fast.
I know.
It's just like zooming by.
Yeah.
It's like, wait. Well, it's 2:31. So, hi everyone, I'm Laura Ray. I'm the Outreach and Instructional Services Librarian at the Law Library here at Cleveland State University, and a member of the OpenCon Ohio Planning Committee. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our next session, OpenRN and I'm not sure if it's WisTech or WisTech, excuse me, Open, leveraging AI for a more inclusive open education. All of our presenters are from the Chippewa Valley Technical College, one of 16 colleges in the Wisconsin Technical College system. Vince Mussehl, WisTech Open Director, Samantha Rubenzer, an instructional designer, and Kimberly Ernstmeyer, a WisTech Open Lead Editor. Just a very brief background. In 2023, the Wisconsin Technical College System received a $3 million grant to create, scale, and advocate for open educational resources. WisTech Open is the culmination of this funding and previous system-wide projects to reduce student textbook costs, to promote affordability, equity, and student success. The OpenRN project was initially funded by a U.S. Department of Education Open Textbook Pilot Grant to create 5 zero-cost nursing textbooks. The project grew to include 5 more textbooks and virtual simulations funded by grants from the U.S. Department of Education, U.S. Department of Labor, Wisconsin Technical College System, and WILS, formerly the Wisconsin Library Services. This presentation will explore how WisTech Open harnesses AI to create dynamic, personalized learning experiences, including learning resources, digital audiobooks, and supplemental materials. The session will discuss practical applications of WisTech Open's AI-driven innovations and highlight how these innovations can be adapted to diverse educational settings. So I will now turn it over to Vince.
All right. Thank you, Laura, for the introduction. And thanks everyone for joining us today. We're excited to talk about how WisTech Open and OpenRN have used AI for inclusivity in what we do. And just to clarify, Laura, we're WisTech Open, so for Wisconsin. So that's how you might remember it.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about learning objectives, but really today, we're just going to look at how we integrate AI to help with accessibility, adaptability, and engagement. We're going to share with you some tools that we use that support our stakeholders in helping to reduce some of these barriers. And then we're going to explore some practical applications or a showcase of some of our AI-driven work that we've done and how you might be able to adapt it. And if you want to follow along, you can use this website at the bottom, wistechopen.org, if you'd like. So Laura described a little bit of history about us very concisely. So as she mentioned, we're founded as a collaborative initiative between the 16 technical colleges. And really that started as part of this grant writing that we did for the United States Department of Ed Open Textbook Pilot Grant. So we received funding in 2019 to reduce the costs of students in nursing programs by developing nursing resources, a discipline where there wasn't a lot of open content. We didn't realize how well it would be received, both in the state and nationally. So it grew as Laura mentioned, to include other projects as well. I think she said 5 additional textbooks and hundreds of simulations or many simulations. As the project matured, we were able to leverage additional funds that came up. So things like her funding during that time, we used her funding to develop a nursing assistant text. We used the Department of Labor grant to develop medical terminology. And then we used other different grants, private grants, small grants, to help us with content as we move through this. In 2023, we were awarded state funding by the Wisconsin Technical College System. And this was because our students rallied together and lobbied for open ed at a state level. And in response, they awarded us $3 million over 2 years. And we're very optimistic that will be re-awarded again for the next budget cycle. So I just like to share a little bit about the impact. Remember, this project started in 2019, and the impact that we have now has grown to just be extremely exciting. So in Wisconsin alone, who's our target market, we've really impacted over 60,000 students and had a big cost savings of over 10 million. And that's just with our initial textbooks to date. Worldwide, we've had over 1,300 institutions adopt or implement our content, which includes all 50 states and territories in over 67 countries. We know from analytics that every country is using our content, but only 67 is formally adopted. I like to share the top US adoptions by state because Ohio's on there. They're number 9 for the country on using our content. So we love it. We love to have you with us. And that's one of the reasons why we're here today. So today we're really going to talk about how we use artificial intelligence. We're going to begin by talking about how we use it to develop textbook content. And then we're going to talk about how we do videos and images, different interactive learning activities. We just recently launched our audiobooks, or we're still working on them in progress. So we're going to share about that. And then we're also going to talk to you about our new instructor supplementary materials. It's like an interactive platform called WisTech Fusion where content can be built for you. So I get to talk about how we use AI to develop textbook because this question comes up all the time in meetings and in different presentations. So really, it seems like it would be easy to just simply ask ChatGPT or DeepSeek to write a chapter for a textbook. And we've tried it. And it doesn't do a great job of that. You really need to refine your prompts. You need to keep prompting it, et cetera, et cetera. So what we've learned that it works best for outlines and initial drafts. So if you ask it to draft a chapter on trauma for an EMT book, it will probably give you 2 to 5 pages, largely in bullets, with sources that are mediocre. So we really just kind of take this, consider it, and see if it aligns with our competencies, and then make edits to that. We also use it to find content or resources. So if we know something as an instructor, remember we're experts in what we teach. If we know something and we might need a source to back that up, then we can type a prompt in to find a source for that we can then vet. We also use it to paraphrase content. So to summarize or paraphrase something that another resource might do, but you only need a small piece of that. We can use it to adapt for different audiences. So thinking community college versus high school, different languages, etc. We help it to provide cohesion to the content so it can maintain that consistent style or tone that you often don't get with multiple authors. And we also use it to provide accessibility recommendations. So it will provide some minor recommendations on how to improve some of your content. And next up, we have Sam, who's going to talk to us today about interactive learning activities.
Hi, I'm Samantha Rubenzer. I'm the instructional designer for WisTech Open. So I have a technology role and a design role as well. I'm going to take over the screen if I can really quickly. Let's go with that one. Okay. Okay. I have a spot on my presentation where it needs to have audio, so I'm not sure if it's going to work or not, but if it doesn't, I can find a different way to do it. So part of my role is once the content gets migrated into our digital platform, which is Pressbooks, my job is to find opportunities for interactive learning content where I can take physical worksheets and turn them into a digital activity that students can get immediate feedback on to measure against their understanding of the content knowledge. So this video just kind of shows that in this textbook, they were asked to apply a visual representation to what they know a definition to be in terms of a concept. And the way that that activity looks within the digital book is the content would be presented within the page. And they have their content understanding here. And then at the bottom of the page is all of the learning activities that go along with that chapter. So it could be different deliverables such as drag and drops. Yeah.
Can I just interrupt quick?
Yeah.
Are you sharing your screen, Sam? Is it allowing
Oh,
you to?
I think so. Is it not showing?
Showing for me.
I can see
Is
it.
it? I'm
Says
sorry.
sharing.
It says that I'm still sharing, so
I
I'm gonna
see
stop
it.
sharing. Okay.
Okay, yeah. So it can be different deliverables such as drag and drops or fill in the blanks multiple choice. And then there's that image selection activity as well. If students select the wrong answer, sometimes there's a prompt that will tell them what they got wrong or directs their thinking back to the content so that they can find the right answer. Just kind of depends on the content type that's selected. And then the way that we were able to leverage this kind of platform for more technical coursework was to incorporate these into workbooks, such as blueprint reading and respiratory therapy, which was interested in developing an open lab manual. So I just kind of wanted to show you the blueprint reading example here. This activity is a physical worksheet that the instructor hands out in class. And it was turned into, rather than saying circle one of these, students can actually select the answers that they want to submit for their feedback, and it will tell them right away once they respond. Same with other activities in terms of prints, whereas they would be writing these by hand in class, they can simply drag and drop the answer locations onto these activities for that immediate feedback. We leveraged this in a little bit of a different way for respiratory therapy. This instructor had a vision of having no students required to purchase a lab manual. So we just turned things into drag and drops, fill in the blanks, multiple choice. And then this one was kind of special for this book where they can use their phone, iPads, or other devices in class in their lab where they would normally be handwriting out short responses. They can actually type it here. And then it turns into an exportable activity that has their responses that they type. So there wouldn't be a reason to have to buy a print version of the book if they didn't have the funds or want to, or if they learn best digitally. Then they can export the content into a Word document and upload it into the LMS. Although these are only available in the digital book, we do offer it in different formats too, such as print, where students can opt to purchase those, and also in the audiobook platform, which is my next slide here. So students had requested an audiobook version of some of our lengthier texts. So we found a platform that uses AI voice narration where we can upload our electronic publication, and it'll transcribe all of the written content into an AI narrated voice. So this would be a avatar voice, or you can clone your own voice if that's of interest too. I do have a sample of this. I'm just not sure if the audio is going to work. So if it doesn't work, I'll try to go about it a different way. But on my side of the screen, this is our print version or our digital version of the text. And on this side is the audio transcription of it so that you can hear the AI narration. Hopefully it works.
You can't hear it here.
Not hearing. Okay. Yeah. So I'm not sure how to share my audio of my computer.
When you share your screen, there should be a checkbox that allows you to enable sound. So if you like reshare.
If I reshare it.
Yeah, if you reshare your screen, but before you
Got
complete
it.
there's
So-
an option. Yeah.
So you'd have to stop and then start sharing again.
There we go. Let's see if that worked.
Entrepreneurship introduction.
Yeah. Okay.
Entrepreneurship today. As we dive into the study of entrepreneurship, let's define what we mean by the word entrepreneur. There are many definitions, but for this course, we'll think of entrepreneur as someone who identifies and acts on an idea or problem that no one else has identified or acted on.
So that's what an AI narrated voice sounds like. Sometimes they can be more natural. There are some options that are a little bit more robotic too, but you can sometimes change the inflection of the voice and tone so that it sounds a little bit more of natural vocabulary, natural terms. And then we distribute this over 40 different retailers through our retail partnership. Some of those would be Apple Books, Google Play Books, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo, along with some other library partners too. And then the last slide I have is to talk about how we cater to instructor needs. And so WisTech Fusion is how we took an AI platform, a large language model, which is run by ChatGPT in the background. We've trained that model on our textbook content in order for instructors to generate their own supplemental materials. And they can customize the materials based off of the feedback that it provides the model. But knowing that all of the information in this model are trained off of our textbooks and not pulling things from random web sources, with the exception of case studies. The case study is the only one that will pull from outside sources. Everything else will pull from our own textbooks that are selected here. So in this video, I'm explaining that I need it to focus on the myths chapter of innovative business mindset, and I'm catering the customization to one of the competencies that are for this course, which is on debunking common entrepreneurial myths. And then I'm just advocating or like informing the model that I'm human. I have a valid email address and it can track which college or institution I'm pulling this from. And then it generates the content on the right side of the screen. And then that allows you to download it or export it into a Microsoft product such as PowerPoint or Word. And once it's downloaded, it can be customized however the instructor needs. The phrasing of the terms can be changed, the answer selections can be changed, formatting, anything that they need changed can be fixed here. And then at the bottom of the page, we always have our copyright information, and it has a live feed for the date so that the year trademarks correctly. That's all I have for my slides. So I'll stop sharing here so Vince can take back over for OpenRN slides here.
Real quick, before you go on, can you tell us the name of the AI narration tool that you used?
Yeah, we use authorvoices.ai.
All right. Tim, did you want me to share audio on this?
Yes, please. So while Vince is pulling up my portion of the presentation, I just want to mention, even though I'm from Wisconsin, I was born and raised in Ohio, in Bowling Green, Ohio. So thank you for inviting me. It's great to go back to my home state. Spent a lot of summers on Lake Erie. So looking forward to doing that again. Before I go on to what we're doing in OpenRN, I want to just kind of go back because you've heard a lot of information from Vince and Sam so far, and I just want to elaborate on a few things. For OpenRN content, you know, we started this, as Vince mentioned, back in 2019 and pre-AI. So we made a commitment when AI first came out. I think it was the end of 2023. We don't use AI to create any of the content in the books. We get asked that a lot about OpenRN. We do use it, as Vince mentioned, to help create content outlines, find sources, things like that. But for nursing in particular, for those of you that work in nursing or assist nursing faculty, you know, evidence-based content is so important. And so we didn't find it was useful at the time to really help us find those sources, those most current sources to support evidence-based practice. That's where the SME is so important. And you're going to hear me say that a lot because AI is a tool. It harnesses, right, the power of our brain and expands it. But you still need that subject matter expert. And that's in developing content. It's in developing videos, audio books, learning activities, just like Sam was explaining. It's everything that's created has to be reviewed absolutely by a subject matter expert for accuracy and sources. It's getting better, but it still hallucinates once in a while. The other thing I wanted to elaborate too on, Sam did a great job of showing some of the instructor resources that are created using the Wisconsin Fusion product. And she mentioned really quickly that that pulls directly from our textbooks. And I wanted to take a moment to elaborate on that because it's really important, especially for, you know, I'm focused on nursing, but really for any discipline. because our textbooks are completely aligned with state curriculum for that program. So the books are leveled according to the level of student. If it's an intro level book, for example, for anatomy and physiology, it contains intro level information. And so because that product only looks at our books, it's going to be automatically leveled. You know, the learning activities will be automatically leveled for the students. And that's really important. And that's a feature that if any of you are looking for AI type tools to develop things like that, that's really important, because otherwise it pulls content from the internet and you can have, you know, physician level content included in entry level courses. So I just wanted to mention that. I just saw a chat pop through about the audiobooks and accuracy. We started creating some videos, which actually leads into my slide right here. I can talk a little bit more about that from an OpenRN perspective. So back in 2023, and this is similar to what we're doing now with the audiobooks, but this is where we started it. We started creating something called RN recap videos. This is for one of the OpenRN books called Health Alterations. It's a very detailed, complex book for practical nursing students or second semester associate degree nursing students that covers, you know, basic common health disorders across every body system. And as we were developing this with a work group from faculty across the state, a couple faculty mentioned, you know, it would be really nice for our learners that have an auditory learning style to be able to hear just a brief overview, 3 to 5 minute overview of each one of these disorders, because they all just start melding together, and it's just helpful. And so when we created these, and I'll have Vince show you here, demo this here in a second, we had it just like I was explaining for the WisTech Fusion. It went back to our specific book, so the content was already leveled. It was already peer reviewed by faculty and practical nurses working in practice. So we knew it was accurate. It was supported by sources. And we used AI to generate the image of the nurse that you see here. We used AI to generate the audio, and then just the speaking part. So it turned into a video. And so that, you know, you would think it would be pretty easy to pull that out of the book that's already there. All that content is already there, but it did take a subject matter expert to go through and listen to make sure that not just medical terms are pronounced correctly, but sometimes it's funny words that AI gets hung up on, like common English words like angina, for example, can be difficult to get it to say specifically. So we used, for applications, we used Midjourney to create images. We used play.ht and then DID for the video. So we used 3 different components for this RN recap. So this is just an example for iron deficiency anemia. We don't need to play the whole thing, Vince, but just give an example here of an overview.
Iron deficiency anemia is a hematological condition characterized by insufficient iron, leading to a reduced production of hemoglobin and red blood cells. Common signs include pallor, cold extremities, brittle nails, fatigue, rapid heart rate, palpitations, shortness of breath, muscle weakness, glossitis, headaches, dizziness, and unusual cravings for non-food items.
You can see
it can
here
develop
she's
from
kind of struggled with glossitis. Some of these words we tried over and over to get, we had to phonetically spell it out and try to get the tool to pronounce it. But the way we did it, like I mentioned, it went back to the book, and then we had a specific prompt. So each audio is structured in the same manner. So it starts out, you know, what is the condition? What's the pathophysiology? What are the symptoms? You know, what are the interventions? What do you teach patients about? So not only did it create a structured, consistent structure to all the videos, it also actually helped us go back to the books and make sure that everything was described in a similar, consistent way across disorders. So it helped make both better to have the subject matter review again that content. So that's an example of our iron recap videos. Like I mentioned, they're in the Health Alterations book, but they're also out on our OpenRN YouTube channel. So that faculty can download them and use them however they like. If they choose not to use the book, but they like the videos, they can do that too. The applications, the questions are flashing by quickly, but they're not free. They do require subscriptions, but I don't know the current cost, but for the most part, they're relatively reasonable. Sam can tell you more about that too, if you have more questions at the end. Another thing that we have in our OpenRN books are what we call virtual simulations. So I want to explain something, because if you go to the OpenRN website or the WisTech website, you'll see virtual simulations talked about and virtual reality scenarios talked about. So we have two different things going on here if you go out there and try to download something. The virtual simulations are screen-based simulations, and we'll show you an example of a video here, or you can scan the QR code right now if you want to work through the simulation. It's actually created in H5P. So students, they'll see the learning objectives, they'll get a handoff report like this from a nurse, they'll hear a little blurb of content from patients, and then they have to make decisions. Who am I going to go see first? Who's most acute in terms of medical conditions? What am I going to do first once I'm in the room? How do I communicate? So there's decision points embedded in all of these virtual simulations, and they get immediate formative feedback. So as soon as they make a decision, they get an answer similar to what Sam showed earlier with the learning activity she had in H5P. But it's that formative feedback that's so powerful, because if students don't understand something, links are provided in many of these back to the OpenRN textbook where they can review content that might still be confusing to them. So those are the virtual simulations. We actually started creating those when COVID hit back in 2020, because we couldn't do immersive virtual reality at that time with the equipment, with the headsets and the hand controllers, because we have social distancing. We do have something totally separate with virtual reality that requires a different platform. I won't talk much about that today, but those scenario plans are also licensed with CC licensing and are available. So let's just show this video real quick, Vince.
Please provide morning cares for the residents in rooms 101 through 106. Alejandro Hernandez in room 101 has heart failure and will need his TED hose applied before he gets out of bed. He is very hard of hearing. Chen Shulin in room 102 has COPD and should have her nasal cannula in place at all times. Carolyn Smith in room 103 has moderate to severe dementia and tends to become agitated.
Okay, that's
at
probably
bath
good
time.
enough. I don't want to bore
It
you with
helps
all
to
the
use
medical
validation
details.
therapy as described in.
So this, as I mentioned, these were created back in 2023, 2024. So this, you're already going to notice some things that have dramatically improved since then. In fact, I think there was something just released by Google last night that actually one of our people that worked on this project took some of these original videos and showed what it looks like now. And what you'll see is an even more realistic look to the nurse, to the environment. There was a little bit of a delay here, at least on my end. I don't know on your end with the audio compared to the video. You don't see as much of a delay with that when you're interacting directly with the simulation. But again, these were created with the same AI platforms that I mentioned earlier for RN Recap. Actually, if you go to the next slide, Vince, I want to mention what we just listened to was a handoff report by a nurse. These are all the different patients and nurses that we created using AI. None of these people truly exist. But at that point, a lot of feedback that we were getting was improve the diversity of patient population and nursing population. We had some access to videos with CC licensing that we had used in a previous project called Arise, where hired actors were used, but we only had so many. And AI really, it just exponentially, allowed us to create more diversity in terms of patients and healthcare and different barriers to healthcare that patients might encounter that nurses need to be aware of. So this is just an example of some of those that were included in the virtual simulations that were some of the most recent ones created in 2023, 2024. So I just want to wrap up by showing you some results. So OpenRN, we've now published 15 textbooks. Some of those are second editions, but at least 10 original textbooks. And we just released one called Health Promotion, which finishes out all the books required for a practical nursing program that could be remixed for anyone's curriculum. But I wanted to show you the pass rates, because for those of you that aren't nurses or in nursing education, the NCLEX is the national licensure exam that nursing graduates must take to get their nursing license. And this is an ultimate measure of success, right? Once they've gotten through the program, do they know the content well enough to pass their NCLEX and become a nurse? And this group, this 2023 group that you can see kind of on the bottom right, all the way to the right side, that was the first cohort that we had that used OpenRN books throughout the program, except for a med-surg book that was in third and fourth semester. But other than that, they had access to either books that were published, books in progress, but mostly OER, not commercial textbooks. And if you look at the orange line, that's the CVTC graduates. We had over 98% pass rate of our graduates, which was significantly higher than about 93% for Wisconsin, for national average pass rate, and just for associate degree nursing pass rate. So it shows you, it's not just one thing that makes students successful, but the adoption of OER textbooks, the inclusion of these interactive virtual simulations, the learning activities, some of which Sam was showing you some examples. We have those type of learning activities throughout the books. It shows the success that students can have. And we don't have a slide for this, but we do have a survey that we include in the virtual simulations that I showed you. We have over 2,000 respondents so far in that survey. Over 93% are students. And they say those virtual simulations they help them develop their clinical judgment. They like the length. They're about 10 minutes long. It gives them a chance to immediately apply their knowledge to patient care scenarios and just, learn to think like a nurse. And that's what we're trying to achieve with these learning activities. So just wanted to share that, that little piece of success to show these things work. So now on to Vince.
All right, thank you, Kim. Before we share the tools, I just wanted to make sure to talk about some future projects. And if you're interested in being involved in some capacity, we'd welcome some feedback. So we're going to look at Microsoft Office, additional early childhood education textbooks. We're going to be revising our nursing textbooks and also creating a new textbook, Clinical Health Alterations. We'll be doing textbooks in marketing, some textbooks in pharmacology and general health, respiratory therapy. We're doing Accounting 101 and a course or a text for paralegal. So you can find those projects on our website and sign up under the Get Involved piece. And if I refresh this, you should see the tools here. So these are some of the tools that we talked about today. I know that we use more than what's on this list here, but this gives you a good idea of how we do this. And it is important to note that not all of these tools are free. In fact, if they are free, it's only for a small piece of it. We found that to really the best use of our time and to get the most accurate and best results, we've had to use the paid products. They're not extremely expensive, but if it's something you can fund with grant money, it's certainly something that you should consider. And we'll share these slides with everyone, but did we have any questions from the group or any discussion?
Are you doing anything in rheumatology?
I don't even think I know what that is, Kim.
Oh, arthritis, different kinds of arthritis.
There's a little bit, introductory content in the health alterations book on different types of arthritis, and then it gets into more detail in that book that Vince mentioned that's being developed for registered nurses in the second year of the program. So
I'm kind of curious, like these projects seem like that's an amazing number of textbooks. How many people do you have working on this on your campus?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I wouldn't say on our campus. I would say how many people are working on this in general. Each project is different. Some don't have very many participants, and some have in the hundreds. I've seen participation in some of these projects as low as 15 to 20 people. So that's the smallest after peer review, chapter review, editors, and so forth. But Kim, maybe you can chime in here. Some of the OpenRN works, because we really needed a lot of feedback on those texts, had, was it over 100, Kim, in some of them?
We
Or
have over 100, yeah, over 100 contributors. So the way the OpenRN books are created is we start with our state curriculum, which is for all 16 technical colleges in Wisconsin. We develop a work group of instructors that teach the course across the different, they're standalone colleges, but we all have the same curriculum. And then we just, who wants to volunteer to help develop chapters, who wants to be a work group member to review chapters as they are created. And then we have editors that review that to make sure it's consistent in structure and tone and voice. And then once we get it all uploaded into Pressbooks, which the core team helps with images and accessibility and creating learning activities, then we send it out to peer review. When we had the Department of Education grant, we were able to include national peer reviewers. We've had over 350 individuals participate from across the United States and Canada in being peer reviewers. So it really does, that's a common concern with OER, faculty concern is quality, right? And it really takes that collaboration and peer review to ensure quality.
we had another question about Pressbooks, whether we pay for a subscription or if we do the hosting on our own. And right now we pay for a subscription. We pay for it for the entire project, which is the state. It's pricey. We have looked into other options before, but Pressbooks is really a really great product, I think, or we've kind of agreed on. So until we come up with some other options, I think we're going to stick with Pressbooks. Interestingly, funding isn't a concern when it comes to this. We can benchmark funds for a new platform, but when we have a great product already, we kind of say, why reinvent the wheel, at least at this point.
There was a question about linking out to free resources or like Medline. And I'm glad you asked that question because from the very first book back in 2020, we felt it was really important to link out to credible online resources that students learn that skill, because remember back then it became very apparent that not everyone was aware of what's a good credible site and what's not. And so yes, we link out to Medline, we link out to CDC, we link out to National Institute of Health. Now some of you might be saying, now what's happening now that these websites are being modified? And so we go with each new edition, we go back and we double check links. We link to the new pages where the information can be found. But in some cases, we've had to say, this was the content at the time, and then here's another source that you can use. But we feel that's really important so that students know the need to know information according to the curriculum, that they have these supplementary resources. Maybe they want to read more about arthritis, like you asked about, Laura, or other things. They have that source they can go to, or videos. We include a lot of YouTube videos just to have multimedia learning activities in place for students.
There's a question in the chat about our competencies and standards. I know that I can answer from the WisTech side. Some of our programs are state aligned, others don't have state curriculum, so it can vary depending on what the program is, but Kim might have some more information on the nursing side of things.
Yeah, we use for nursing, we start with the state curriculum because that's how we determine the generally one chapter for every course competency. But then from there, we use a lot of external standards. primarily the NCLEX test plan that all nursing students, whether they're in an ADN program or a BSN program, they all take the same tests. So the content they need to know based on the practice analysis and the NCLEX test plan that's released every 3 years is in the textbooks. Now, some schools, I think we have over 1,300 institutions now, Vince, using our OER materials. So a lot of them are remixing what we have out there. There's tools out there, like many of you might be familiar with. LibreText has a remixing tool that makes it easier for faculty to say, I want chapter 3, 6, and 9, but it renumbers all the pages, the tables, the figures. That's an option. Another option is some of the print publishers also offer the ability to customize books according to your curriculum. I do want to mention that because we kind of glossed over that, but sustainability is a huge issue, right? For OER and all these learning activities. And so we mentioned, Sam, I think you mentioned some of the retailers that we use. We're not making money off of any of the OER, but this is part of our sustainability plan. So when we create a book in Pressbooks, it's downloaded by a print publisher named Kendall Hunt right now. They create an affordable print version that we review. We go through 3 proofreading passes to ensure accuracy. And then that's available for students to purchase. And then a certain amount of those sales are contributed back to an earmarked fund that allows us to continue to make these updates to the books and to the learning activities. I don't know, Vince, if you want to talk more about some of the other ways that we're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, Kim is right. We've partnered with different organizations as well. Unbound, for example, Nursing Central, they are recently just integrating our content in exchange for a small royalty on their end. Again, any of these partnerships, they're all, the core resources will always remain free for students. It's just some of these extras. So audiobooks, as Sam mentioned too, we receive royalties off of those. Those are optional purchases for students. And then we have audiobooks. Do we have anything else, Sam? I'm trying to think. Audiobooks, partnerships, and print right now is our primary royalty drivers.
That's all I'm aware of at the moment, yeah.
And it's very small. We're not able to just survive on the royalties at this point. We're hoping in maybe 3 to 5 years we'll be able to survive off of them. So right now we do rely on the state funding.
I have a question. You said you have content experts across the country and even Canada. Do you have content experts as well as practice experts, inclusivity experts? Like I find sometimes in nursing textbooks, there is a lot of bias towards certain underrepresented communities. Although the pictures may be diverse, the content sometimes is not. And so how do you actually account for that? Especially with AI and having bias within the actual coding and programming.
I can speak to the books and then, or do you want to go first, Vince? It's up to you.
Kim, I was going to say we really rely heavily on our peer reviewers for help with that type of work. Our reviewers are from all over the state. They all have different backgrounds, and we're hoping for them to add to this. I should say our reviewers from all over the country and Canada, but our developers are primarily from Wisconsin. So we do rely on this team to kind of go through and look at that. And Kim, if you wanted to add more, I know it's an item on the rubric.
It's an item on the rubric. And like you said, it's really having those national peer reviewers that have been, helpful in broadening the perspective, outside of the state. And just ensuring, we were one of the very first textbooks that converted to using they, them, instead of he or she, back in 2020, in an effort to be more inclusive. And it's just something that we focus on in case studies and other things, that it's very much patient-centered care, and being aware of what patient values and preferences are and potential barriers to healthcare that all nurses need to consider for all patients.
I think it's worth mentioning that we're continuously improving. So while we have our methods and our processes, that doesn't mean that they're perfect, and we're always open to improving things, as we've done significantly since our inception in 2019.
Thank you.
Well, this has been a really fascinating presentation. Thank you very, very much. I'm sorry to say that we have another session that's going to be starting here. So thank you again very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.